Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Mayor and I edition, Nick.
39?
Edition 39, and it's 10th of September 2024 today,
Yep.
Nick. And Mayor and I, please, if you like this, subscribe, thumbs up, and comments are important, apparently, Nick.
Nearly 14,500 subscribers now.
14,500, so that's good.
I hit 40,000 on Twitter yesterday.
And yes, I saw that. Well done, very well done. So Nick and I in this talk about things that generally enrage me, and Nick tries to calm me down. But I was just thinking about this. We don't profess to be experts, but we just kind of want to talk about things that we're seeing, hearing about, and want to express our opinions on things. And hopefully that's helpful for you guys.
It's a conversation.
It's a conversation, and I want to talk about this later on, about conversations and courage and things like that, because I think that's important. Because I've been listening to some stuff about how we can effect change, if that makes sense. So anyway, welcome to the Mayor and I, edition 39. Nick Buckley, nice to see you again. I'm kind of a bit behind in terms of topics, because for various reasons we had a break, not a break, but we tried to catch up on things, and the sheer number, Nick, of things that are happening, it's very, very hard to keep up. But at the same time, I also want to discuss things with you that I've seen that I think are important or need to be talked about. So I also don't want to miss stuff. So I will try and over time catch up with the subjects. I just want to go back to last week, because we talked about, I can't remember what we were talking about, but we mentioned a film, the Day of the Triffids.
Yes.
And I was discussing this in the context of you don't know who
Who's been taken over.
Who's been captured, until they point their finger at you. And there's a film scene where Donald Sutherland points his finger and starts to scream, and that's when you know the person, then you know you've been trapped, basically. And I called it the Day of Triffids, but several of our listeners and a good friend of ours, Barry Wall, told us it was actually Invasion of the Body Snatchers was the film I was referring to.
Yeah.
Because Day of the Triffids is about some plants that can walk, basically.
Yeah, I've seen both films, but they're that old that I didn't remember.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers is where you are taken over by something.
The body,
and you don't know who's one of them, or you don't know who's... So we were talking about that, so just apologies to our listeners who may have spotted that. I want to go back a couple of weeks, actually, to something that was in the news a lot, which was the Notting Hill Carnival. And the reason I want to mention this is because this is kind of... I've got a separate section I want to talk about, which is I call two-tier bastards, but this is another example, I think, of the two-tier approach of not just not just the government, but the police and the media as well. Got a gigantic daddy longlegs there. So this was, I don't know if you saw this, but there was I think it was a BBC, a newscaster reporting from the Notting Hill Carnival, and they said they said something like there's been 3 stabbings, 90 arrests, 2 dead people, 50, and they said, but outside of that it's been mostly peaceful. I don't know if you saw that.
I think I did, yeah.
You know, and to me that
wasn't 90 arrests. There was last thing I heard, it was like over 300.
Yeah, I think. But when I wrote this down, at that point, it was 3, and in the end, I think it was 3 people were killed in this.
Oh, wow, I've not heard about 3.
I think it was 3 were dead,
right.
or was it 3? Anyway, so there was serious violence, there was death, there was murders, there was all that sort of stuff. But it's the first time I've actually seen somebody on the media actually say something, that juxtaposition of 2 things that were clearly nonsensical, but they said them anyway. So on the one hand, reporting the level of violence, extreme level of violence, by the way, far more violence and certainly more killings than were involved in the so-called far-right riots in terms of that. But they then described it as mostly peaceful. Now, there's no way that would have been said during the so-called far-right riots, is there?
There isn't, but we need to put this into context. So the arguments for Notting Hill Carnival will say, but Lindsay, 1 million people attended. So those amount of arrests for 1 million people, hardly any. It's basically zero. So that would be their argument there.
Yeah.
What would you say to that?
Well, I think what I'd say to that is, well, why is it happening at all? Why are we putting it on an event, supposedly a peaceful celebratory event? Because this isn't like a enough is enough riot or enough is enough protest or whatever. This isn't a contentious event, is it? It's meant to be a celebration of Caribbean culture. Why would you have a regardless of the number of arrests? There were 2 deaths there. There were lots of serious injuries. There were policemen assaulted. I think it was 15 police officers assaulted. Why have that at all then, if you're going to have any kind of level of violence or death?
Because it's a celebration of Caribbean culture.
Yeah.
And Caribbean culture's violent.
Yeah. Caribbean culture's violent.
It is. Jamaica's one of the most dangerous places in the world.
It is actually, yes.
It has been in the top 3 for like 50, 60 years of most dangerous places in the world per murder, per population.
Yeah.
Notting Hill is different to almost everything else we compare it to. So people compare it to Glastonbury, where there's riots and there's drug dealing and people will be arrested. But Notting Hill is different as in it's not a contained area. It's streets. Anyone can walk in and walk out. And the police, none of the police want to work it. And it isn't being policed. What the police do there is damage limitation. You can walk past police officers in Notting Hill, smoking drugs, injecting drugs, saying whatever you want, being racist. The police will not interfere because they're there to stop mass murder. They're not there for any other type of crime, really. And the police officers don't want to work it. So you get away with whatever you want to get away with to a certain extent at Notting Hill. That's why it's unlike anything else we have in the country. It was started, was it 1958, because of race riots in the area. So 1958, still the Windrush generation, and we've already got race riots because immigrants are not happy in this country. That was a decade after immigration started. We didn't learn anything from that. We just gave him a carnival. You can have a carnival every year and that will solve your problems, which it didn't. It needs looking at. It needs to be moved to a park, Hyde Park. It also needs to be looked at, should we be running it? Why are we celebrating anybody else's culture in London, in this country? If you want to organise it for St George's Day, and we can have, a part Caribbean festival in there, but we need to get away from celebrating other people's cultures because it's divisive. We've got something similar in Manchester on a much smaller scale, the Moss Side Carnival. Police officers don't want to work that either. I've worked on that when I worked for the council. Nobody wants to work it. During the day it's fine. Families, kids enjoying themselves. Once the evening comes, gangsters come out, you've got known drug dealers, you've got people walking around who are known to carry firearms. The police don't want to get out of their vans. The police will let you do whatever you want to do to a certain extent. Don't want to arrest you in case it causes problems. Moss Side Carnival one year didn't even have an alcohol licence and sold alcohol all weekend. The council knew about it, the police knew about it and did nothing because they said to themselves, we don't want any trouble. And that's exactly, on a much smaller scale, the problem in Notting Hill. Everyone is afraid to tackle it because you're going to be called racist, it will lead to violence, and then you'll be blamed for that violence. So just let it be.
And I think the interesting point you made there, why are we celebrating that when we are starting to close down traditional English festivals, aren't we? Like, I think like in London, New Year used to be a similar event, anybody could go, whatever. Now it's become ticketed, I think, is that right? So events like that, events at Christmas are now being closed down. There's Christmas markets are being closed down. There's far less access to those things. But we carry on regardless with the Notting Hill Carnival. There's no restrictions or limitations. Because you make a really good point. I think people have talked about it being ticketed or whatever to try and reduce these issues or whatever. But that hasn't happened, has it? No. We've seen lots of other events all around the country starting to be curtailed as a result of, crowd control or whatever. So certainly, I know at New Year's Eve, that's a real one in the capital of London now. That used to be an event, a national event. Anybody could go to London, go to Trafalgar Square at New Year's Eve and enjoy it. That's now, I don't think you can do that anymore, can you? It's ticket.
I don't know.
That's what I understand.
But if we move it to Hyde Park, you then can charge entrance fees, which then pays for the police. Because don't forget, 7,000 police officers are on duty for Notting Hill, all taken out of the police budget. So the rest of the year, we have less police on the beat in London because of Notting Hill.
Yeah.
But at least if we charge people to go, contain it in a park where there's entrances and exits, you have better security, charge people to go, and then that'll subsidise the policing of it, like you do with football matches.
Yeah.
Like you do with many things. No, the police budgets are small, and we need to start compensating that.
Yeah. So I guess the question is, why is it still carrying on?
No one's got the backbone or the balls to do anything about it. It's been going on for that long. Who in their right mind wants to be the person to stop it, to change it? Because you're going to get grief. You're going to be called a racist. Someone like Sadiq Khan will lose votes on it because he goes after all those minority votes. There's not a win for anybody. The only way it'll stop is when we have something really, really terrible happen, such as 30, 40 deaths, such as open gun crime, a dozen people shot in the head, machine guns going off, bombs being planted. Maybe then someone will act. But at the moment, a couple of dead black people. Well, black people are dying every day in London, aren't they? So politicians will not stick their neck out for dead black people.
Were there black people who were killed?
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
Black woman, I think she was stabbed, and a black chef who's worked with Gordon
Ramsay.
Ramsay.
Right. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Beaten to death or stabbed to death. But yeah,
it's the next thing I want to talk about, which to me this is what it stinks of really. This because again the media is saying mostly peaceful about it. This awful two-tier treatment of certain sections of society. And this is, to me, Notting Hill is an example of that, but there are some other examples I want to talk about today. So one is the No Whites slogan that was painted on a wall or something. I don't know what area. Was that somewhere in London?
It was London. I think it was London, yeah.
I'm not aware of, unless you're aware, that they've caught anybody related to that or made any arrests or whatever. But it's
they will not be looking into it.
Yes. Yeah.
Unless someone's got CCTV footage with a facial picture of the person clear.
Yeah.
The police won't even be looking into it. There's no brownie points for the police on this.
But I'm pretty sure, and maybe you'll correct me, if somebody had painted no blacks on a wall, that would have been headline news, and the search for that person would have been unrelenting. I don't know if you think that's the case.
Do you remember someone writing shit in a bucket on that Man United football player's memorial in Manchester, Rashford?
It wasn't a memorial for him. I think it was...
There's a big painting on the side of the wall.
Oh, sorry. Mural.
Mural,
I thought he said memorial.
No, sorry.
I think Rashford's still alive. It's hard to tell when he's on the pitch.
Well, yeah. Yeah. Well, do you remember that?
Yes.
They put paper over it. Everyone said it was racist. It was shit in a bucket in blue paint, which probably means it was a Man City fan, and it was graffiti against a Man U player. It wasn't racist at all.
Yeah.
But the country lost its mind
the
over
furore
that.
over that. Yes, it was unbelievable.
People were dropping flowers there and candles and lighting a vigil all about, let's sing Kumbaya, and it had nothing to do with racism. So can you imagine if it had been racist?
Yeah. Yeah. And there's another example in Norway. There was a sign painted on a church, and it was covered over by the police, and the media also conspired to cover this over and not release it, because they believed it would create racist attacks, but it would create xenophobia and racism for minority groups in Norway. And do you know what that said, Nick?
No.
It said, kill white people. So you have a sign painted saying kill white people on a church in Norway, but covered over to protect the minority people.
Not to protect white people.
Not to protect. No. Let's not worry about protecting white people. So let's not worry about who's actually painted that on the wall. Somebody basically suggesting or inciting white people to be killed. Let's worry about the fact that that might incite or might potentially end up with some brown people being harmed.
So basically, white people are racist and are the problem. And even when someone is racist against white people, those white people are still the problem.
Yes, exactly, yes.
You can't win.
So white people can't win, can they? Because if they do anything racist, they're pilloried, attacked, called racist, thrown in jail or whatever. If somebody is racist against a white person, then white people are still the problem because they're the ones who are going to react to that and then attack brown people again as a result of their inherent racism. And this is the ridiculous point we've gotten to now. No, white people cannot do anything right. Or no matter what happens to them, they're always the guilty party, basically.
Well, this comes straight out of critical race theory. So critical race theory says everything's racist. And it's about looking deep enough to find the racism. And that's what this is. So racism happened there. And the racism was, white people are going to persecute brown people because of the graffiti. That's pure critical race theory.
So we are now stepping away from the perpetrator of a crime if that perpetrator of the crime is doing something that potentially is going to threaten white people.
Yeah.
In that situation, the white people are to blame. They're potentially the ones who are going to react to that in a bad way, not the person who's actually perpetrated that racial crime at that point.
And isn't this a catch-22?
Yeah, of course it is, yeah. It's a horrific position for a white person to be in, isn't it?
So as you probably know, catch-22, I forgot what war it was now, Korea, Vietnam or something. And this book was written about a pilot trying to get out of being a pilot because he was scared of dying.
Yeah.
So if he volunteers to fly the mission, they let him. If he says, oh no, I'm mental, I'm not well, I don't want to fly the mission, then that means you're not mental because you know how dangerous it is, you're trying to get out of it, which means you're fit enough to fly it.
Correct, you're saying, exactly. So just moving on the two-tier thing, we saw all the anti-racist, were the anti-racist marches? I'm trying to remember that. And I think we agreed that they were all funded by Hope Not Hate, which is a charity, which again I've looked a bit more into. So it's a charity that's been set up for the public benefit. It's not meant to favour any political party.
Not allowed to if
you're not allowed to if you're a charity. But apparently they did support the Labour Party against George Galloway when he stood in is it Rochdale that he stood. So they actually came out in full support of Labour, supporting Labour with funds, with posters, everything like that against George Galloway.
Well,
so they are
that's a direct breaking of Charity Commission rules.
Yeah, because you've run charities, so you know exactly how it works. You can't have any affiliation of that kind of...
All you're allowed to do is you're allowed to support or go against policies.
Yes.
So if Labour's got a policy you like, as your charity, if it's connected to your charity, you can go, I like this policy because it's going to take children out of poverty.
Yes.
Or it's going to do this, it's going to do that. On the opposite, you can say, I don't like this policy because it's going to lead to more poverty. So you can say things like that. What you're not allowed to do is say, I support Labour, I support Tories, here's money to run your campaign. You're not allowed to do any of that.
So we've got this so-called charity that is clearly partisan towards the Labour Party, that is supporting all the anti-racist protests, which are basically Labour Party controlled and driven, as far as we can see. Far left. But nobody's doing anything about it. Nobody's reported them. No, they're not being investigated. But if you had a so-called right-wing charity doing anything like that, they'd be all over the place, wouldn't it? They'd be all over it.
Yeah.
What makes it worse is the governors of this charity, and you know about governors and things. One of them's a Labour MP, which doesn't really help. Yeah. Another one is a Daily Mirror columnist, which I believe is left-wing Labour. And another one is an imam who was dismissed from another job, whether it's a charity or not, I don't know, for spreading racial hatred.
Interesting. So Labour MP being a trustee, absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. Being a reporter for the Daily Mirror, absolutely fine. Having somebody who's been convicted, did you say convicted of
He was dismissed from another role for spreading racial hatred.
Right. Well,
I don't know the details.
Yeah. So that would ring alarm bells for me. That why would a charity then offer him a post on their charity when that's the baggage he's bringing? But again, Charity Commission to a certain extent is toothless. Also, like all our institutions, the Charity Commission is captured. So they're looking at a lot of things, hope not hate, doing, saying, and going, well, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. But it'd be wrong if it was a right-wing charity doing and saying these things and supporting Reform UK. They then would be in trouble.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they would be. We've also talked quite a bit about the prison sentences being given to the people who were in the Enough is Enough marches and causes. There was a recent case where a guy was given 9 years. I don't know if you saw that.
Yep.
And he was given 9 years. He was actually involved, to be fair, clearly involved in violence. And
he was trying to set fire to the hotel.
Trying to set fire to a hotel. Didn't kill anybody that I'm aware of, or nobody died as a result of that. But he was given 9 years. But something else I've discovered recently, again, the two-tier thing is unbelievably clear. In the year to March 2023, 100, and this is a big number, Nick, so this is why it's important. 147,000 people were given community resolution orders instead of prosecution or criminal sentence. So they avoided any kind of criminal record.
Yep.
Given community resolution orders instead of prosecution and jail. Now you might say, oh well, if that's for somebody chucking a cigarette out of a window or whatever, I can understand that. However, these were serious crimes. 50,000 of those 147,000 people, 50,000 were cases of violence against a person. Now those 10,000, what I call political prisoners who were arrested and a lot of them put in jail.
1,000. Was it 1,000, not 10,000?
1,000, sorry. What was it 10,000 arrested? Or was it 1,000 arrested?
I saw Pug saying over 1,000 have been arrested.
1,000, sorry, apologies, you're right. Of those 1,000, I would imagine most of those had not committed any violence against persons in their...
I would say majority.
Yeah. So here we have 50,000 people who've committed violence against a person who've been let off with nothing. Now, if that doesn't totally stink of two-tier policing about the fact that these guys are political prisoners, I don't know what else does.
Yeah, quite a few things there. So some of the people at the riots deserve to be arrested, deserve to be punished. Some of them deserve to go to jail. 9 years is an unfair sentence for that person, setting fire to a wheelie bin next to a door of the hotel. Compared to, you can stab someone to death in this country and not get 9 years. Yeah. Life in this country, minimum life is 8 years.
Yeah.
So if you hear someone has got a life sentence, we automatically think, oh, they'll be in jail forever. No, life sentence in this country is minimum 8 years. We call it life sentence. Yeah. It's not a life sentence at all. But there's people who have been arrested for tweets, for saying silly things, who you think could have been addressed by a community resolution order like that. I was working with the police 15, 20 years ago when these came out. And these originally came out to free up police time and court time. So if you're a 14-year-old kid and the police catch you breaking bottles in the park, police officer would phone your mum, instruct your mum, and you as a 14-year-old would have to come back with a pan and shovel and a bin bag and clean up all the mess you've made and apologise. Well, that's a good result for a kid who's not been involved with the police before, to be punished, to clean up his mess and maybe learn from that. We've now had to arrest him, spend hours in police cells, take loads of police off the street, take him to court, use court time when it could have been dealt with like that. That's what they were created for. But almost immediately, once the police got those powers, certain police officers, and I saw this firsthand 15, 20 years ago, lots of police officers went, this is a fantastic opportunity for me to get rid of all these crimes off my books. Because police are always carrying a couple of dozen crimes they've got to look into. Well, here's a crime now. You apologise, say you're sorry, that's now done. And that's why we're doing it for violent criminals, for sex offenders and stuff like that. The victim of these crimes is given the impression that they have no choice. My understanding is if the victim doesn't agree with it, then it can't go ahead.
But they'll be brainwashed or they'll be persuaded.
But they wouldn't know. The police will speak to them as if you haven't got a choice. And you go, oh, okay then, I'll take his apology.
Well, they probably say you do have a choice, but they couch it in such a way
that
they think they haven't got a choice. And I think a lot of these political prisoners that were arrested after the Enough is Enough protests, I think they were told that they should plead guilty as well. Because...
And they were, but for different reasons.
Yeah.
They were told to plead guilty because we're going to hold you on remand, which means you're not going home until you've been to court. And you're not going to get a court date for 18 months. So we're going to hold you for 18 months. Then if you're found innocent, you can go on. Or you can plead guilty now and you'll probably get 3 months sentence and you'll be out in 6 weeks. It's like 18 months being held and then maybe...
Can they do that though?
Yeah. But to be held on remand, the court has to show there's a danger to the public. But the government has already decided that. So you are a danger to the public. You will be held on remand.
Because this is what we've been told by them upstairs.
This is why some of them are criminals, but they're also political prisoner criminals. And some of them are just political prisoners. So there's two different types there. Some of them do deserve punishing. We can't have people trying to burn down hotels regardless of who's inside it. We can't have that. But we can't have the government then interfering in those court cases saying treat him or her harshly, don't give him remand, and when you get a sentence, give him 9 years. Me and you could burn down a hotel down the road from here now and could set it on fire, and if no one dies, we probably wouldn't go to jail.
I know, that's the reality, isn't it?
They probably wouldn't even go to jail.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. That's right. You'd probably, because of your record or whatever, no criminal record, is the one.
But if they could prove that we thought Keir Starmer was in there and we set fire to it and no one died, we'd be looking at 9 years. See the difference there? That's why they're political prisoners.
I won't comment on that. Another example of two-tier treatment in the NHS, and I think you're aware of this. I think so. Jess Phillips, who's an MP, she used to be quite a senior MP in Labour, and I thought she was at one point going to be in the shadow cabinet, but I don't think she's in the shadow cabinet, is she?
I don't.
No, oh, sorry, in the cabinet, not shadow cabinet anymore.
If she is, she's got a junior role because I don't know.
She fell out of favour for some reason.
Yeah.
However, she recently gloated that she was treated faster when she went to A&E because the doctor was a Palestinian, and he told her because she'd voted for a ceasefire in Gaza, she got special accelerated treatment.
Yeah.
Now, to show the sheer pompousness and arrogance of this Labour Party and these Labour politicians and these Labour MPs and their belief in how they are right all the time, she seemed happy to report this.
Here's an MP who jumped the queue at A&E and then told us all about it.
Yeah.
She told us all how unfair the NHS is and how you can be treated differently. That's two-tier healthcare, and she wanted to tell us, and the reason why she wanted to tell us, because that sends a really good signal to all her voters. Most of them are Muslim, and she's saying to them, look at me. I know you had a go at me during the general election and you almost, I think, should have won a seat by 500 votes.
Yeah. And there was that scene at the end where they were all shouting at her.
Yeah, and she blamed men. Right. Well, no.
Well, they probably were men. Yeah.
Muslim men.
Yes.
Were giving you a hard time. Not men.
Yeah.
Muslim men.
Yeah.
So she gloated about that because that is sending the signal to her voters. Look at me. The Palestinian doctor thinks I'm so amazing, so therefore I must be doing something good for Palestine because the doctor liked it as well. I don't think she cares how it looks beyond her voter base. A couple of things jumped out to me straight away. Palestinian doctor. What's he doing here? Doesn't Palestine need some doctors?
Yes, desperately.
Because they're having the shit bombed out of them.
Desperately.
So what's he doing over here?
Yeah.
Let's deport him tomorrow.
That's a really good point.
Let's deport him back to Palestine, and he can help his own people.
Yes, yeah.
And be a hero.
And who wouldn't want to do that if you're a Palestinian doctor? Why wouldn't you want to be there helping your people?
Most of the world, because they're cowards.
Yeah.
That's why they all run away from their countries, because they're cowards.
The way he thinks he's helping his people is by letting Jess Phillips lead the queue, basically. Yeah. That's how he's showing his affiliation and loyalty to his country. Yeah.
The second thing that jumped out to me was, how would a Jewish person feel going to that same A&E and being treated by that Palestinian doctor, knowing he prioritises people on their political beliefs?
Yeah.
Will he also give people a worse service because of their political beliefs? So
that's an important
he may
point.
not let a Jew jump the queue.
Yeah.
But would he give them a worse service because you are a Jew?
Yeah, yeah.
That's not a big jump considering what he did for her.
No, it isn't a big jump at all. I think it's a perfectly reasonable thing to think about. You're right. If you're a Jewish person, a Jewish child or whatever, you come in with something injured or whatever, are you going to get that level of treatment correctly? Is that bone going to be set correctly when it's bandaged up?
Yeah.
Because this person who obviously feels strongly enough to let somebody jump a queue because they voted for Gaza, what their view is going to be on a Jewish person.
Exactly.
So I think that really is a horrific story for me, because it just shows how grubby these Labour MPs are and the way they think. And also it embodies for me this idea that, you're right if you're supporting Palestine, you're right if you're voting for a ceasefire, you're right if you're anti-Zionist or anti-Israeli. And it's kind of, there's no concept in her mind that saying that might offend other people, might actually go against other people's views and opinions.
She may have done, but doesn't care.
Yeah.
Because those people don't vote for her.
Yeah.
For her, this was all about her voter base.
Yeah.
She was sending a signal to them, going, look at me.
Yeah.
If a Palestinian doctor thinks I'm great, then you guys must listen to him, because I am great for the Muslim cause.
Yeah.
That's what that was about. And it also showed us it's not just two-tier policing. We've got a two-tier state. All our public services are two-tier. It just shows it. Depending who you are, where you are, what your beliefs are, you will be treated from the person next to you, depending on who they are and what their beliefs are. And that's all our public services.
There's a question that I think I know the answer to, which kind of relates to this, and I've mentioned it in my notes here. Parliament's back from its summer recess now.
Yeah, and Labour is now beginning to be held accountable a little bit as well, which is nice to see.
That would be good to talk about. It is being held accountable on the winter fuel payments, which is quite interesting, but I have seen very little, unless you see more than I have, of the opposing parties taking Labour to task over what happened over the summer with the riots following the death of the murder of those three girls. The only person I've seen standing up briefly for us, people like us, I think, is James Cleverly, who commented on the fact that Starmer and Rayner took the knee for BLM, but then would not stand up to defend on the Enough is Enough so-called riots, basically. Instead called them far right, and that he pointed out that hypocrisy there. But I've not seen anything else unless you have.
I haven't, and I didn't expect to, because it's over and done with now, and there's no brownie points for any of the opposition politicians to be associated with that violence. The people who went on those marches, 99% of them went for the right reasons, but they allowed the criminals and the lunatics to ruin it for everybody else. Those riots now will be classed forever as far-right violent riots. They weren't far-right, but they were violent. And that opportunity to change the country is now gone from the Southport murders. But unfortunately, there's another murder coming down the road, and maybe the people will act better next time at the next slaughter of children. And we need people on those demonstrations to police themselves, and we need strong men on those marches to police those other men who are quick to violence and quick to criminality, because they're ruining it for everybody. If there was no violence on that, it'd be very hard for the government to clamp down. It'd be impossible for the government to clamp down. But those idiots gave them a gold-plated excuse to clamp down. But more dead kids are on the way, and let's hope the public manage to demonstrate a lot better next time.
I've been reading quite a lot about this and listening to quite a lot about this, about revolution. I think you and I have talked about it before. And I think you mentioned a figure of 3% the other day.
3.5%. So there's a theory online. If you can get to 3.5% of the population believing in your ideas, that's when it goes mainstream.
I think you and I have talked, or you've mentioned the French Revolution before. I think there's also, remember, is it Romania, Ceausescu was overthrown as well.
All the East Europe.
All and what was interesting, what I've been hearing about and reading about, is that when these revolutions happen, they happen from a very, very small base, from a very, very small number of people. Apparently, the French Revolution could be localized to 3 or 4 cafes in Paris where individuals got together to talk about revolution, and those 3 or 4 and remember there wasn't social media at that time, and those 3 or 4 cafes with groups of people who got organized then managed to stimulate, to drive the population to overthrow the French Republic. It was the French monarchy, basically. Ceausescu as well, he was talking about, apparently there's quite a famous video where Ceausescu is speaking, and then within the crowd itself, a disturbance starts, and then that disturbance ripples through the whole... Have you seen this? Yeah. So this disturbance ripples, so a crowd that's ostensibly there to support Ceausescu transformed literally in front of his eyes into a hostile crowd and that is the point that led to the overthrow of Ceausescu. And this, you talk about the 3%, but something I heard recently was that 60% of the population, I don't know how accurate this is or not, 60% of the population will follow or will do what they're told to do, basically. And it's the other 40% that determine which direction that's going to go. So
I'm amazed it's as high as 40%.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly, but I think what it said is there's 60% will do what they're told to do effectively. Of that other 40%, probably 30% of that don't have a view, won't do anything. But that tiny percentage is what can then influence the majority. And kind of to hit that point, because my views, I don't know how you think about. You and I think we have the right ideas about certain things, and I think our ideas are based on truth. I would say generally we see the truth and what we believe the truth. What we call the woke population, the population where we think have the wrong ideas. I think a lot of their ideas are very fragile. Things like men can be women, all those kind of views.
They base their reality on how they would like it to be.
Yes.
I base my reality on how I see it to be.
Yes, yeah. So I think there is a general agreement that kind of a lot of the woke ideas like critical race theory, trans things, all those multiculturalism, as much immigration as you want, they're actually very fragile ideas that on analysis and dissection don't stand up. And I think you and I explore that time and time again. Whereas our ideas, I think, as you say, are based on reality, truth, and the actual what might be happening here. So to actually overthrow these ideas is not that difficult, as long as people, and I go back to the very beginning of this discussion, start to show courage.
Yeah.
And so kind of where I've reached, Nick, and I'd be interested in your views on this, where I've reached in my head, and this is over the past week or so, is I've kind of reached the point where I'm thinking now, I'm never going to persuade these, and we have a very good friend, Barry Wall, don't we? His philosophy is, I'm going to teach people, I'm going to show people that they're wrong, basically, and I'm going to persuade them. And he holds, we're advertising for Barry here, by the way, he holds he calls it warrior teacher courses, where, I mean, he's very much, that
programme isn't about people who have got a different opinion to him. That's about people who know the right, just haven't got the communication skills
Correct.
and the
Yes.
knowledge to be able to go out in the world and talk
And persuade
about
people. Yeah. So his logic, Barry's logic, and he and I have discussed this many times, and I said I don't agree, Barry. He believes he can persuade people who are woke, who have ideas. I mean, his particular speciality is the trans thing, isn't it? He believes that he can persuade. He said, Lindsay, I can, get somebody who believes in the trans thing in front of me, and I will persuade them that they're wrong. And he is a very persuasive guy. And he holds these warrior teacher courses where people of like mind to him, he trains them to go and persuade. So his belief is he can persuade people, everybody over time. I think I've reached the conclusion now, I'm never going to persuade these people that their ideas are fragile, don't make sense, are nonsense, that whatever. I think what I want to do now, if I can, is ask people to start to become courageous. And we flip back again to a conversation you and I have had about a guy, and you said I said he'd been black-pilled, or you said he'd been black-pilled. And you called him a coward several times.
And he's not happy with me.
He's not happy. He's watched the video. He's very unhappy about it. He's a few harsh words for you, Nick. So you've called him a coward. And I'm actually starting to think, I think you're right. I think people need to start to be brave. And where I'm getting to now in my head, and I'd be interested in your view, if people start to become brave, people who have our opinions, who are watching this, starting to watch this, as you say, a lot of people are starting to watch our kind of conversations now. If people can start to be brave and start to say things at work or in the street or whatever that they believe, if they start to do that, then we start to shift towards that tipping point we've talked about in the French Revolution, Ceausescu, where suddenly people out there are actually the government will then be overthrown because the sheer public mood and view will shift. If we can just start get people to be courageous, not to be cowards, as you call. Do you think that is a possibility?
I think you're spot on, and that's what I've been trying to do now for 4 years, because that's the way forward. That's why I'm on Facebook. That's why I'm on this platform and Twitter. It's not about. So you said about not convincing the woke that they're wrong. There's two types of woke people. You've got the diehards. You're never going to change the diehards, the ones who really believe in it and have invested all their time, energy, their life in it. They're done and dusted. But they're only a small percentage. Most of the people who are woke are only woke because it seems to be the way things are going.
Correct.
And it's an easy life for them just to go along with all these things because I ain't got the time to look into it. Everyone else around me says it's right, so I'll just go along with it. You can change them. You can change them by conversations, facts, and pointing out where they're wrong and why they're wrong. But you're right. It doesn't take many brave people to change the world. We can list brave people who've changed the world. The Gandhis, the Mandelas. History's full of people like that. One person who's changed the world, and we can do it. All of us are capable of doing it. But are we there yet? Are we there yet that people are ready to be brave? And I think most people aren't, because it's still quite comfortable. And an example would be, you live next to a lake, and in the middle of the lake is a banana tree. It produces the best bananas in the world, but it's full of crocodiles. But the banana trees around the edge of the lake all produce bananas, they're just not as good. How long will you wait eating those inferior bananas before you decide you're going to swim in that crocodile-infested lake to get a good banana? And that's where we are now. Why would people risk destruction, jail, losing their family, losing their friends, on a fight for excellent bananas, where these bananas next to me now are okay? Things have to get worse before the vast majority of people will go, there is no bananas now, is there? Only those bananas in the crocodile-infested lake. I'm going to have to swim. It's starve or swim now. And that's where Starmer's is going to take us. But in the meantime, I said to people all the time, I wrote a book on it, Lessons in Courage.
Yeah, you did.
It's available on Amazon. All about being courageous. It's not about being a hero. It's about being courageous. It's about doing the little bits you can do. I have people say to me all the time, Nick, it's great, that you're doing what you're doing and blah, 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 blah. But I've got a mortgage. I can't afford to lose that and lose this. There's 2 points there. First of all, you can fight without people knowing you're fighting. You can speak to your friends, you can convince your family, your friends one by one that they're wrong, this is direction. You can repost tweets. There's things you can do in your life. They may be small, but rather than doing nothing, you might add a tiny thing to the fight. If that's all you can do, that's all you can do. And the other thing is, what type of fight do you want to take part in where there's no consequences? Where there's no threat of being punched in the face. Because if you're waiting for you to be courageous and stand up and fight when there's no consequences to it, that's not really a fight, is it? That means whatever you're pushing for isn't really important because no one cares. So it's it's about being brave, sensible. We don't need people ruining their whole lives over nothing, but only as an individual can we make those choices of where that line is. But people, there's no option now. I don't want to hear of people who say, I can't fight. But if you say I can't fight, if you say to me, the country's finished, what's the point? If you say to me, I've had enough, I'm leaving, I'm going to Poland or to America. If you've got any excuse like that, we've got a word for you, and you're a coward. And the reason why you're running away is because you're just like the immigrants who come into this country. You're abandoning your homeland. You're abandoning your family, your friends, because you're too cowardly to fight. So you're going to run away to another country. And what you're going to do when that country then is invaded by this woke nonsense, you're going to run away from that country. You can't live on your knees. And the other thing is, the more you keep, and that's this how I started with your black pill friend, if all you've got to offer this fight is negativity, then you're better off just shutting up. Because the more negative you are, the more you talk about we're over, we're finished, the UK's crap, the more you talk about our country like that, the more you convince other people that to be true. So they don't fight. How do you think it felt in 1939 where we thought Nazis were going to invade and everybody wanted to make a deal with Hitler and maybe let us run ourselves and things like that? And Churchill was going, no.
He was a woman.
Because you cannot negotiate with a tyrant because they'll come back for more.
Yeah.
We have a fight now or we'll never fight again. How do you think we felt when the Spanish Armada was off the coast of the UK? And, our navy went out to fight them. When Napoleon was going to invade the country, 1970s where we were the sick man of Europe. We've been in worse situations. There were different situations, but we've been through this before and we're always victorious. And what we don't need is negativity. And we don't need cowards, because the more you hear from cowards and the more you hear this negativity, it sets the environment for everything else. Other people then go, well, yeah, if it's over, there's no point in me fighting. We're not over until every one of us is dead. Then maybe I'll accept it's over.
As Churchill said, when we lie choking in our blood on this very floor, I think that's what he said, didn't he?
Yep.
This Long Island story of ours will only be over when we lay choking in our blood. I think what you just said there is fantastic, and I think you're spot on. What I would say is, does it have to be? You talk about the banana tree metaphor. Does it have to be a crocodile-infested pond? Are there not simple things we could ask people to say that would get the message across without them endangering? For example, white people are not intrinsically racist. Britain was not a racist country and did more for racism. Men cannot be women. There's certain little things that can be said when somebody says something stupid to you. If people could just say those little things, would that not be the beginning of that bravery you're talking about, without compromising? What I mean is, and I know what you're saying, and your views are very strong, and you've been there, Nick. So I'm not saying it's easy for you to say it, but you've crossed the Rubicon on this, haven't you? You lost your job because of comments you made about BLM, and you came back and fought as a result of that. You didn't give up and go in the corner and say, I'll just keep my mouth shut for a while now and hopefully I can go back and whatever. You came back and fought, and you opened Pandora's box and you embraced what was there. But for somebody who does have a mortgage, who does... Well, and a lot of the people who comment on our videos, I know their monikers are anonymous, aren't they? They're not exposing who they are. They haven't put their full names there. And I don't know if we have to ask them to do that. But in their day-to-day life, are there certain things that they can say that will start the fight, if you like?
There's a million things they can do. And it's down to each individual to work out what those things are. Being silent isn't one of them. Doing nothing isn't one of them. Pretending to go along with the status quo isn't one of them. So some people may be able to just speak to their family and friends because they don't talk about it at work because I might lose my job. Well, I'll give you that at the beginning. But speak to your family and friends, share videos, talk about things online, even if you are anonymous. There's lots of things we can do. There is no playbook I can give them that says do this first, then do that, because everyone's different. Everyone's got different skills, a different group of friends, and works at a different place. But you need to work out for yourself. And if your answer is, I don't know what to do, I want someone to tell me what to do, well, you're just a different version to the woke then, aren't you? You're waiting for someone else to live your life for you, to tell you what to believe, to tell you what to do.
Well,
take some personal responsibility.
No, but they might be looking for guidance from somebody like you. So, for example, I mean, you make a very good point. Rather than start at work, start with friends and family.
Yeah.
So if one of your friends or your family is talking about the fact that, you know, that what's that guy's the guy's name, Valentino Trillo. So, for example, let's use that as an example. Valentino Trillo is He's that bloke, Paralympian sprinter.
No.
He's
trans guy.
Sorry, yeah,
right.
sorry.
Right.
Sorry. When I said a bloke, I meant a bloke who is racing against women in the Paralympics. He's basically a big burly bloke who was a sprinter as a man, a competitive sprinter as a man. Now has decided he's a woman and he's racing against women in the Paralympics.
Yeah. But to be fair, he is disabled because he's mentally ill.
Yes.
So
I don't know if that's his disability he's declaring.
Right.
But let's assume you're with friends and family and somebody says, oh, isn't Valentino Trillo stunning and brave? What could you say to be courageous? And we use this word courageous in a maybe flimsy way. To be courageous in that moment. Yeah. So you're a middle class person. You're sitting with your friends and family. Have you been watching the Paralympics? Well, I would say no, because it's a load of bollocks. Yeah. But normal people would say, yes, I've been watching the Paralympics. It's really interesting. But then somebody in the group at the dinner table or whatever might say, oh yeah, isn't Valentino Trillo stunning and brave? What do you say to that person?
My advice would be don't engage in the debate if you're not confident enough.
Right.
That puts you off. Just state a fact. And the fact is, oh, he shouldn't be there because he's a man.
Right.
And end it there. You've told everybody what your point of view. Other people there will be going, I wish I'd have said that. Yeah. And you give them confidence to speak out. What you don't want to do is engage in the conversation. Why is he a man? Well, the answer is, because he's a man. Don't start getting into transgender ideology and this and that, because if you're not confident enough with talking about it, you end up looking stupid, in which case you lose the argument.
Yeah.
Don't engage in the argument because there is no argument. You just go, he shouldn't be there because he's a man.
Yes, yeah.
And then that's the end of that conversation.
And the conversation there.
Stating facts like that at the appropriate time give other people confidence because they go, that's exactly what I believe in, and the ground didn't open up and swallow that person, and the police didn't arrest him. Yeah. I'm going to say that next time I'm in a conversation and someone comes out with some crap I don't believe.
Yeah.
So saying nothing's not an option, but don't feel you've got to represent the whole right wing with your view. Just state the fact.
Yeah. Because
it's very hard for someone then to beat you in the argument when you're not arguing.
Yeah.
It's a fact.
No, I like that. I think that's good advice, and I think what your role can be is to give people the confidence about things like that. So when you and I talk about all these issues, and I'm sure people are watching and saying, yeah, I totally agree with that or whatever, if you can then give them guidance without being patronising to our gentle viewers, if you can then give them guidance and say, this is what you need to say in this situation to it.
Yeah.
And you're right, I think this potentially could start with friends and family. Start saying things like that to your friends and family. Don't keep quiet. Don't get in a massive argument.
Yeah.
Just state a fact about the truth with this. Don't kill him. State a fact like that. And you're right, it might not have the impact on the person who said it, but it might have the impact on the people around you at that table.
Exactly. And the more you say those things, it will increase your courage inside, because suddenly you don't feel as cowardly as you did.
The earth suddenly hasn't swallowed you up.
Yeah, and you don't feel as cowardly because saying things you know are not true damages you. You know you're lying, you know it's wrong, and you feel a bit more like a coward. When you start saying things you want to say, it gives you confidence. It's like, well, yeah, that is true. In my book, Lessons Encouraged, one of the chapters...
Available on Amazon, ladies and gentlemen. Yes.
I give 10 tips on how to be courageous. And some of them are simple, such as eye contact. So when you're saying to someone, oh, the man, yeah, he's a man, him. Look at someone in the eye. Head up, shoulders back. When you walk into a room, be confident. And there's only the difference between a confident person and an unconfident person is the fact the confident person doesn't let you know how unconfident they are.
Yes.
That's the only difference.
Yeah.
And it's about telling the truth, and there's 10 rules in there about I go through.
Maybe we can have an episode about that sometime.
All really simple that anyone can do.
I think it would be useful if we could give some guidance to our viewers on this stuff, because this is kind of where I'm now heading. I've kind of, as I say, I've crossed that kind of Rubicon in terms of I've realised now trying to persuade the hardcore left they're wrong is not going to work.
It's not going to happen.
It's about mobilising the majority of the population.
The vast majority of people will swing from one side to another depending on who they think have the winning argument.
Yes, yeah.
They're all winnable.
Yeah. And if it's that 3% you're talking about, if we can get that 3% being courageous, they'll then swing the majority, and then the whole thing starts to shift, doesn't it? But I think people need to hear this from a reasoned, articulate individual. And as you say, one of the problems we have out there in terms of our kind of the people we regard as, I suppose, our heroes now, people like Farage and Tommy Robinson, they're a bit tainted, these guys, aren't they, in terms of some of the way people perceive them.
That's why the leader we need at this moment in time, we don't know their name.
Yes.
Because even though I agree with lots of things Tommy Robinson says, he's tarnished because of his past. Even though I agree with lots of things Nigel Farage says, he's tarnished with Brexit.
Yeah.
So lots of people will never forgive him
for Brexit.
For Brexit.
Yeah.
But the person who will lead us to a better place is already here. We just don't know their name yet. And it's no one who's running for the Tory leadership. Because they're all tainted with the crap last 14 years.
But as I always say, the Tories are the same as Labour. It's the same. It's the same
party.
It's the same party. It was something I was watching the other day, and it was actually an American guy, an American economist. He was talking about the Republicans and Democrats, and what he was saying is, for years, the elite, the powers, have organised it so that basically the two parties will represent their views no matter who wins, and they are tame versions of on either side, and it creates the illusion of choice. And the illusion of choice, which I think we've got in this country now, is what keeps the people calm, because they think they've had a choice. They think they've had a choice in this last election. They haven't had a choice, have they? The choice was Tories or Labour. Tories are crap, so it's got to be Labour. But the party has carried on driving the wishes and dreams of the elite, whether it's Labour or the Tories. It carries on, and it's the same in America. And that's why Trump was such a shock, because he broke through. He wasn't chosen. And you said this the other day about Starmer. You said Starmer was chosen decades ago by whoever chooses the people who are going to run our country. And it's been the same in America. All those politicians have been chosen on both sides to harness the wishes of the elite. And that's why Trump has been such a shock. But this guy, interestingly, said they're not going to let Trump win this time, which I thought was quite chilling.
They're going to try the hardest not to. Last time we had a choice in this country was the 1980s.
Who was that between?
Thatcher and the Labour government.
Yeah.
There was distinct choices of where they wanted to take the country. Since the 90s onwards.
And didn't you say the other day that Thatcher was kind of an aberration as well? That she was kind of out of... She was... I don't know if it was you or somebody else was talking about, said that basically we've been heading towards communism and Thatcher was the only blip in the path. That was in you in the path.
Yeah. No one expected... Thatcher became Prime Minister by a fluke. When she challenged in opposition, when she challenged the leader of the Tory party, no one else stood because they didn't think she was going to win, and nobody else wanted to ruin their career by challenging. Was it Edward Heath? I forgot. When it gets 70s, I forget who was who then in 70s.
It might have been Heath, yeah.
So everyone thought she was going to lose, so no one else wanted to stand because they thought they were going to lose, and she won. And then she became leader of opposition. And then at the election, Labour had done even worse and she won. So no one ever thought, no one took her seriously, no one thought she was going to be the leader of the Tories, and no one thought she would be Prime Minister. But through her being courageous and going, I'm going to stand for leadership against him, and everyone says I ain't got a chance in hell, maybe I've not, but you don't know unless you try. And that's what she did.
It's just while we finish this section on... We've talked about courage, which actually isn't a section in my notes, but you mentioned something about people quitting the country. There's somebody who you and I think both admire, and we both met him. In fact, you actually held a do in Manchester, and he was your guest of honour. And it's a chap called Calvin Robinson, who our viewers may know him. He's incredibly tall. He must be 6'7" or something. He's massive. He's an incredibly tall black guy. He's a vicar, I think. Is he now a vicar or something? I'm not sure.
He's a deacon.
He's a deacon. He's been very, very outspoken. He's affiliated with Lawrence Fox. Has very, very strong views on Muslims, about what's happening in the country. He is a Christian. So he has some views that, maybe you and I don't, or maybe I don't particularly agree with. But he's quitting the UK. I don't know if you've seen that on the...
Saw an interview we did on it.
Yeah, and it's a real blow to us, I think, or to me, because he's a very articulate, very, very courageous individual who speaks his mind, walks his, blows apart all this stuff like about critical race theory, about, all these sort of stuff, kind of exposes the frailties of the woke and the left, extreme left lies. But he's off to Michigan, I think, to run a parish there. What are your views? Now, he said on various interviews he's exited that I'll still be fighting the fight, but I'll be in America. What are your views on him?
When I first saw the announcement, I thought to myself, coward. Since my favourite word at the moment.
I know. Him and my bloke, my black pill bloke. Yeah.
And then he did a podcast with a New Culture Forum. I thought, I'll watch that. And when I watched it, he explained himself, and it makes sense what he's saying. He's not quitting the UK. He's not running away from the UK. He trained to be a deacon, a priest, better word for priest. And he wants his own parish. Church of England kicked him out. And now he's been offered one in America, which he's going there to do that. And like he said on this podcast, he said, all the work I do, fighting the good fight, is online. So that's not going to stop, because I don't need to be in the UK, because I'm not leading demonstrations, I'm not standing up in Parliament. Everything I do is online. I will carry on the fight. And he said, in fact, be even better, I'm going to be building a studio in the church of the parish that I'm going to, so I'll have our own studio there. So it was framed wrongly, and maybe he did it on purpose to frame it like that. But when he speaks about it, he's not running away. He's taking a job offer, because like us all, he needs money. It's a job offer. and he's going to carry on the fight from over there. And he said at next general election he'd be coming back and he'd be standing for Parliament.
Oh, did he say that?
Yeah.
I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll vote for him.
Yeah.
Obviously, unless you're standing against him.
Yeah, well, I hope not. But he's standing for UKIP. He's a UKIP member now.
Oh, he's joined UKIP, has he?
He's got an official position in UKIP.
You mean Reform?
UKIP.
Oh, is UKIP still around, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
They're tiny.
Yeah, I was going to say.
He's joined
I would have
UKIP.
thought Reform would have been more of his natural home.
He doesn't like Nigel Farage, he said on this podcast.
I just want to move on to kind of Europe now. And my question here is, Europe, have they got the answer? Because there's quite a lot of things happening in Europe at the moment.
Yeah.
Things that, we would think should be happening here.
Yeah.
But they seem to be kind of 5 years on the basis we've just elected the Nazi Starmer. Not the Nazi, he's not a Nazi, is he? He's a left-wing communist. The communist Starmer. They seem to be doing things for their population now that there's a suggestion that we should have been doing. So start with Sweden, and the news recently is that they have, for the first time in 50 years, Sweden now have net emigration. I don't know if you saw that.
I saw a headline, yeah.
So Sweden, who we know have had terrible problems with immigrants, and particularly with gang violence.
I mean, the gang violence there is mental.
It's out of
control. We're talking about machine guns, bombs, grenades, not handguns shooting each other with drive-bys. We're talking horrendous gang crime there.
It's serious, and I think the stats are something like the most gun violence, the highest level of gun violence in any capital in the world, more so than some of the American states and things like that in some places.
I read something that it's the most bomb explosions in Europe.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's just horrific.
Yeah.
Although saying that, my daughter did go there the other week for a week, and she said Stockholm was lovely.
Sure it is.
Yeah. So they've now started to react and have net emigration for the first time in 50 years. So they've listened to the people, they're reacting and they're doing things. Their asylum applications are historically low. They've got new rules for Swedish citizenship, including a pledge of loyalty.
Yeah.
So you can't just become like in the UK, you become a UK citizen. You don't necessarily have to speak English, as far as I can see here. There, you've now got to do like they do in the States. You've got to learn about your country, and then you've got to swear a pledge of allegiance to your country. And in addition, the Prime Minister has now called in the army there to deal with gang violence. So we're seeing a country there that is reacting. If we go to Germany, Chancellor Scholz, I think he's called, the guy who took over from Merkel, he's now removing benefits to refugees. So what his expression now is, all refugees will get, so these are the equivalent of our illegal immigrants here, are going to get bed, bread and soap. I thought it said soup first time, but it's bed, bread and soup. They're not even getting soup, they're only getting bread. Yeah. So he's reacting as well to and in addition to that, I can't remember the area now, maybe you do, they've just had German elections, local elections, and the anti-immigration AfD has won convincingly, I think, in two major... I
think they won one area and came second in another area. Yeah.
And of course, the mainstream media is up in arms about this. They're saying the Nazis are back and all that jazz. But we're certainly seeing there, and I think there's other things happening in other European cities as well, a dramatic shift in approach to their issues that they've got there. Are they heading in the right direction, or is this a flash in the pan? We've got Maloney in Italy as well, so...
We don't know, because the governing body in Sweden and Germany are the same politicians who allowed all this to happen in the first place. Why have they suddenly got a change of heart? And it's because the people are unhappy. It depends how long the people remain unhappy, and that we don't know. Germany is now announced it's it's now initiating all its borders, which means anybody entering or leaving Germany will have to show a passport. So it's called the Schengen area. Yeah. So they're cancelling that for 6 months to get a grip on stuff.
I didn't know about that. That's interesting. When was that announced?
2 days ago.
So free travel has ceased in Germany then, basically?
I think we've got another week to go before it kicks in.
Wow, that is big news.
It is for the EU. So They've announced it unilaterally.
Wow.
EU's not happy.
Yeah.
EU are fining Hungary for something similar, but will they fine Germany? Germany and France can basically do what they want in Europe because
it's so big.
They are Europe.
Yeah.
So now Germany has said, we don't like Schengen. We're going to review it after 6 months. We'll see what happens then. If they review it again and carry on, that's the end of Schengen. Where do all those migrants go? Well, they go to neighbouring countries, don't they? Who then will implement end of Schengen. So why are we taking all the crap who want to go to Germany? They're all now in Holland and Belgium. They'll go close our borders.
Yeah.
So if this plays out the way I hope it does, it could be the end of Schengen, which is the first step of ending the EU, but it's also going to be ending easy mass migration into Europe. It won't stop it. It just ends the easy part of it, in which case you can travel anywhere.
Yeah.
It'll stop that travelling.
Did I ever tell you that story about when I was in Portugal and I had a business trip? I had a business meeting in Germany. So I'd flown over to Portugal, to Faro. I'd had to go through the normal queues and everything to get out, whatever, passports, all that jazz. Then I came back to the airport. So I was on holiday. So it was a meeting whilst I was on holiday. So then I came back to the airport, got on my flight to Germany, Dusseldorf I think it was. Didn't have to show my passport. Landed in Germany, got out, whatever. Then when I flew back to Faro, I thought, got my passport ready. I thought, here I go, I've got to do it. I'm not joking. They opened the door to the plane. We walked out. There was one door, and then I was out on the street. And I was like, I can't believe this.
Yeah.
Anybody in Germany at that point could get on a plane in Germany, fly to Portugal. Nobody checked them when they
Just
left.
like England to Scotland.
Yeah, it was. It was like England to Scotland.
That's a Schengen area.
It was unbelievable. I was actually quite shocked, and I was almost standing there with a passport like this, wait, because in Britain we're brainwashed into understanding anywhere we go we've got to show our passport, and that to me was like, I thought, flipping out, anybody could have been on that plane from Germany. Anybody in Germany could have got on that plane and landed in Portugal. Any German criminal could have got on that plane and landed in Portugal. I was quite shocked. So carry on. You were saying about the point.
So we will see what happens in Europe. And is this the end of easy mass migration? It depends if the people carry on voting for parties like the ADF. Because it's that pressure, that political pressure that's changed them. Because we keep forgetting sometimes that we think these politicians are die-hard globalists or die-hard mass migration supporters.
I think Starmer is.
Some of them will be. But
don't forget, he was a human rights lawyer, this guy.
Yeah.
Defending all sorts of,
some of them will be.
Yeah.
But the vast majority of politicians don't care about any of it. They just want to be elected again. And if the public can convince them that you will not get elected with that policy, then 90% of politicians will do a U-turn overnight. And that's what politicians in Germany and Sweden are doing now. Because they're the same politicians who supported this for decades and now go, oh, we need to clamp down. Well, of course you do, because all you care about is getting back into power.
And how does this play out in the UK? Because we're being told by Starmer we're right-wing racist bastards, far-right bastards or whatever.
And we need to rejoin the EU.
And we need to rejoin the EU. You're racist if you don't support immigration. And we've got all our little people out with the placards saying, what do they always say?
Refugees welcome.
Refugees welcome. So we've got all this playing out in the UK. But the people in the UK, even the refugees welcome people, are looking across the channel and they're seeing this happening now, aren't they? And the mainstream media cannot suppress this happening, can they? Because it's happening. They're trying to suppress it. They're trying to say the AFD, right wing, blah, blah. But the people in the UK are not stupid. They can see what's happening. How's that going to play out then? Because as Starmer gets more and more hardline the other way, and he's in power for 5 years, don't forget.
He won't last 5 years. Honestly, he won't last 5 years. The wheels will come off his government over the next 2-3 years.
Right. It's the 10th of September 2024, viewers.
No.
Nick Buckley, MBE, just said Starmer won't last 5 years. Okay.
I can't see it happening. So how will it affect the UK?
Yeah, sorry, that's so. Regardless of whether he lasts the 5 years, the Labour Party is still going to be in power for 5 years, isn't it? We've just voted in an extreme left wing or a more left wing. The Tories are left wing as well, so I don't know what I'm saying. Sorry, a slightly more left wing version of the Tory party for 5 years.
Yeah. Well, again, Labour won't last 5 years. Not just Starmer, the party. This government will fall, and there'll be a general election. It won't last 5 years. I can't see how it lasts 5 years, but we'll wait for history to prove me right on that. How does your...
That's really quite a radical thing you said there. I don't think you've said that before. Because I think you've always said, oh, nothing's going to change this country and this government and the politics and all that sort of stuff. But I think you're changing your position slightly, aren't you?
No, I just thought... I just can't see how the government... How they stay in power when things start getting really, really bad. We've seen it in the past. We've seen it in the 70s. So many governments in the 70s got 5 years.
Yeah.
Did a couple.
Yeah.
And a general election is forced upon them because they can't keep anything together. That will happen here.
And is a harbinger of that what's happened today? So there was a vote today, wasn't there? A government vote to see if they... it was actually a Conservative motion, I think, to say, well, can you repeal these winter fuel repayments for little old ladies, basically? And they won the government, but not by that big a majority.
By 100,
yeah.
Only one Labour MP voted in favour of stopping the government's new policy.
Yeah.
One MP. Many didn't turn up.
Yeah, 50 abstained.
Yeah, 50 abstained. Many just didn't turn up in the chamber. Only one. I thought there'd be more than one voting against.
Oh, you don't think that was that you were surprised that wasn't more?
I thought there may be 30, 40 MPs voting against their own government. I knew there'd be lots of...
That would have been catastrophic for Starmer.
But I think it still is, because every one of those... Lots of Labour MPs now have to go back to their areas at weekends and speak to people, and they are going to be insulted. How dare you? Look what you've said over decades about poverty, and when you had a chance, you were too cowardly to vote against it. I think a lot of those MPs may never do that again. But today is a day for two reasons that when we look back on Keir Starmer's premiership, today will be the day where we go, it ended that day. For two reasons. First, the winter fuel allowance. Over the next couple of years, every winter, when any old person dies, the press are going to go, Keir Starmer killed this old lady.
Yes. Keir Starmer killed my granny. Yes.
Yeah. And every MP who didn't vote against it will be criticised for it as well. So that's a big black mark against his name. Second thing today is they've started letting out prisoners today.
Oh God, yes.
After 40% of their sentence. Some of them are coming out going, I've not voted before, but from now on I'm voting Labour. And saying stuff like that because I find it funny, and it is funny. The second any of these people who've been released commit an horrendous crime or kill somebody, it's going to be Keir Starmer let this criminal out.
Yeah.
Today has been a bad day for Keir Starmer and his government. They may have won the battle today, but they can't win the war because criminals commit crime. Old people die every winter, and this is going to come back to him all the time, and we'll see how he deals with it. But finally, the European bit, how will this affect the UK? Well, I think it affects the UK by showing the people here that change can come. If you can get Germany, the leader of the EU, to ignore the EU, deport people, close borders, kick people out, not give people 4-star hotels. If Germany can do it, everyone sat in this country will be going, well, why couldn't we do it? Why can't we do it now? We're not even part of the EU.
Yeah. We're not part of the EU, but they're doing it.
They're doing it.
Yeah.
If it was that easy, well, why didn't we stay in the EU and just do it when we're in the EU?
That's a great question, isn't it? Because why the F didn't we close our borders? If Germany can do it, just like that.
Yeah.
Instead of can't put his fingers. If Germany can do it just like that, why the hell didn't we do it? Because we said we couldn't do it because of the EU. But you can do it. It's possible.
It could be.
Yeah.
Everything's possible.
Yeah.
Is have you got the backbone to do it?
Yeah.
We haven't got anyone here with the backbone to turn the boats around in the channel. So French Coast Guard will pick a boat up, phone the English Coast Guard. They come along and pick all the people up because the people on the boat go, we're not getting on the French Coast Guard's boat. So we go pick him up like a taxi.
Yeah.
Doesn't take much to turn that boat around, but no one's got the backbone. But at the moment, the reason why they haven't got the backbone here yet, but backbones are coming, and it'll start coming once they all realise they're not being voted in again because of this. That's why it's changing in Germany. That's why it's changing in Sweden. But the Tories were hated so much, Labour knew they were going to win. Not because of their policies, because they weren't Tories.
Yeah.
And then when we get close to the next general election, we will see the landscape then. How are Reform doing?
Well, they're doing very well, aren't they?
Yeah.
Probably.
All the 5 Tory leadership candidates, I think all of them have said they're not leaving the ECHR. They're not going to turn the boats back. And so none of them have learnt the lesson.
Forget the Tories.
So forget the Tories until a new leader we've not heard of comes through, maybe. But until politicians realise they won't be voted in on these policies, nothing changes. But German politicians and what's happening there may wake more people up here going,
I think
the Germans can do it, why can't we do it?
It's a really good point. It's a really good point.
If Germans are giving people a bed, soap and...
Bed, bread and soap.
If they're only giving them that, why are we sending private health services to deal with illegal immigrants? Why are we giving them free bus passes? Why are we doing all these things for them?
Why are we not releasing information of how much we spent on doing up apartments for them?
Well, we all know the answer to that. It's because the people will be mental.
Furious. So I think we'll finish this episode on the bombshell. You heard it from Nick Buckley first, that this government will not last its term of 5 years.
No, it won't.
And neither will Starmer. And don't forget, folks, you heard it here first from Nick Buckley, MBE.
Starmer will go before the government falls.
And there's another prediction.
Yeah, Starmer will go first. Whoever replaces him will be elected because he'll say, I'll save us. Another 6 months year in power, and he'll save no one, and a general election will be forced because of the state of the country.
Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it first on that bombshell. We'll end this meeting.
Cheers.
Nice to see you, Nick.
Did you enjoy that video? I think you did. Come on now, hit that bell, subscribe, comment. Let's build this channel. I need more followers. I need more subscribers. Be part of the journey. See you soon.